So this is Baruch here, and I have my own little circle here, my own little zodiac. Just please try to ignore I just took it off of someone else's chart, and so we're not going through the chart. We're really trying to go through houses and see what they mean to us. So in the last year, Reb Yaakov had said this, he mentioned this aphorism from Ptolemy. It says, if a Virgo or a Pisces will be on the ascendant, the native will create his own dignity. Now that sounds like a very positive idea. But he says if Aries or Libra is on the ascendant, he will cause his own death. The other signs are they can contemplate it in the same way. That's what he said last. So now we're going to start counting the number 8, and he's going to go through the 12 different houses, and he's going to give us an idea how this works out. So he explains, if you have a Virgo ascendant, well, let's find Virgo on this little thing right here. Let's see, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Virgo is the 6th house. So what am I doing? I'm doing it backwards. I'm not doing my own. Oh, here we go. Okay, here's Virgo. So this is the way they usually draw it. In the east, which is this side, is where the ascendant will be located. So let's say Virgo. This is now Virgo. I'm not going to write it because I'd mess up the chart. So he said, but if you have Virgo on the ascendant, he says you will have Gemini in the 10th house. So he says 10th house is fulfillment. So we count like this backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 10th house is going to be Gemini. So he says, and I really should have names for all of these. Let me take a second and write it in, and I'll be right with you. Okay, so I took a minute and I wrote in the names, because we're going to have to switch this thing around and try to read it upside down and do whatever we have to do to understand. But we're going through counts now. Let's say if you have a Virgo, this is the Virgo, the ascendant is on Virgo. So you're going to count 10 houses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's the house called Gemini, right? So that's what he says here. If you have Virgo, you will have Gemini on the 10th house cusp. So count 10 houses forward. And this is because both the 1st house and the 10th house are ruled by the same planet, which is Mercury. That is to say, an idea that we need to know, that every planet has a ruling power. That is the power of another planet. So, or let's say every house, I think I said that wrong. Every sign, that's the right, has a ruling planet. The ruling planet of Virgo is Mercury, and the ruling planet of Gemini is also Mercury. So a person who has a Virgo rising is going to be very connected to his destiny in Gemini. This is because he himself is the 1st house, that is Virgo, and his destiny, which is the 10th house, will be ruled by the same planet. So he's always going to be destiny-oriented in that direction. So this is why Ptolemy says that when a Virgo or Pisces is on the ascendant, the native will create his own dignity, meaning what? Because the 10th house is the house of dignity. Now, he says, apparently I didn't know that. So he said the 10th house, which is the house, really, of career in the house of Adam Arishon, he says the house of dignity. Why? Because of career. You get honor and dignity and importance. And the same thing with Pisces rising. Let's go over to Pisces. Let's say Pisces, now we're putting Pisces on the cusp. The ascendant is here. Count 10 houses backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, that house is Sagittarius. So 10 houses away from Pisces, if Pisces is the ascendant, Sagittarius is going to be 10 houses away. Now, what does this do for them? Because the 10th house is the house of dignity. We said that. And so now we have this. And the same thing with the Pisces rising. That means Pisces on the ascendant, which is on the cusp of the 1st house, which would have a Sagittarius on the 10th house cusp. And both of them are ruled by the planet Jupiter. So here we have signs ruled by planet, and this is the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is the good planet. So again, the 1st and the 10th houses are going to be intimately linked to the Piscean type of personality. And he is going to make his own dignity. On the other hand, let's take the number 8 and let's start with Aries and Libra. So he says Aries, it doesn't work out so good. So in other words, that if Pisces is your rising sign, You're going to be very strongly connected to Sagittarius. So count 10 houses away, and you'll find your fulfillment over there. That'll be like, I think he's trying to give us the idea is that the concept of death is where you're stopped. You can't express your energy well. So let's go on over here and let's say on this. On the other hand, using the number 8 for Aries and Libra ascendants, cause their own death. Why? Because as we just mentioned, an Aries person is in the first house, has Scorpio on the 8th house. So let's just go through it again. We did this once before. Here is Aries at the ascendant. Count 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, count 8, I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is our friend Scorpio. So Aries and Scorpio are now going to be together. And we said earlier when he originally started that they both had the same ruling planet, which is Mars. Now let's see what he has to say about that. So because the 10th house is the house of dignity, and we went that already. So again, the 1st and the 10th house are going to be intimately linked to the Piscean type of person. And he is going to have his dignity. So he says using the number 8 for Aries and Libra ascendants causes their own death. In other words, it gets stopped there. Their life stops there. Why? Because as we just mentioned, an Aries person in the 1st house has Scorpio on the 8th house, and they are both Martian, so that should be compatible. So he, the 1st, and his death was the 8th, are very close at hand. They are somewhat combined. They're a natural combination. So what's wrong with that? The same applies with the Libra ascendant, and its death occurs 8 houses away in Taurus. Let's just count it out here for a second. Let's put Libra on the ascendant. Here is Libra. Now, they always put Libra. This is where the whole chart starts. The chart starts. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And here you have Libra in Taurus. Now, I know a lot of people who have Libra and Taurus go together. So what's the problem with them? Because he's going to explain. So he says the same applies with Libra ascendant, and it's 8 houses later in Taurus, with Venus being the ruling planet for both of them. So this is an interesting idea that when you count by 8s, you get a combination of the ruling planets being in each of those 2 houses. So the Aries and Libra ascendants are uneasy personality types. Let's see, what does he mean by that? He says the Aries is a very brave person, always going fearlessly to his death. And it is interesting that some years back, suicide rates were studied according to the person's ascendant. And the suicide rate was the highest among people with Aries and Libra ascendant. And this is because both of them have the same sign 8 houses away, which are not good for them. What's the problem with their signs? Whilst Virgo and Pisces also have the same signs. They're both mercurial, but both 10 houses away. But it's a better way. Also, Aries and Libra are the archetype signs, and being connected with the 8th teaches that we were born to die. Now, that's a different idea, but let's go on a little bit more. So let us go back to the number 8 and the Aries ascendant. So let's go back to Aries. Okay, here's Aries right here on our thing right there. And there's Aries, he's on the ascendant. So he says, and the Aries ascendant. When Aries is on the ascendancy, Scorpio is in the 8th house. So why would this house be hard for the Aries? I mean, they're actually both Martian planets. They should get along very well, but they don't. So the Aries, so he explains, the Aries always wants to go forward. It's the beginning sign. It's the energy of the universe going forward. It is a cardinal sign. It's a sign of fire. Always wanting to go forward and have no opposition. And its whole goal is just to move ahead and attack. He's like the warrior who goes out and fights the battles. And what the Aries doesn't like is to be defensive. He's an offensive character. He doesn't like to play defense. He is the offensive type of person. And although the Scorpio is a Martian time sign too, also a fighter, he's a killer too. He has a different type of Martian personality. It is the defensive Martian, the Martian who waits, and when the enemy comes, he springs all sorts of surprises and attacks that take care of the enemy. That is a defensive type of fighting using the same Mars, which is not the Aries thing. The Aries personality feels dead when he has to play defense. He wants to attack. Scorpio is in the 8th house of the Aries person. It means that he has to learn the patience of the Scorpio and doesn't like that who's a tactician. The Scorpio person is much deeper thinker. The Aries knows how to attack, while the Scorpio lays traps and carefully plans defensive fighting. But this is difficult for the Aries, who desires a quick victory in a fight. I know many Aries people, and when they are involved in a fight, they always desire to have a quick win. And if they don't win quickly enough, they lose because they don't have the ability, the endurance, or the patience, which people in other signs have. In a more spiritual way, let's go through the houses a different way. The house of Aries ascendant person, if we go 8 houses back. Now let me get out my drawing again here. And let's get Aries over here on the cusp. And let's go clockwise. He says this also turns out to be death. Why? So he says like this: Aries, Pisces, count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That was Scorpio. But now we're going the other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It brings you to Virgo. Now, what's the matter with Virgo? Why should Virgo become a problem if we're going in the spiritual direction? What's the spiritual direction of Aries in regards to Virgo? So let's see if we can get a little bit more done. So, where are we? But that the defensive type says that the Aries personality feels dead. Where was those Scorpio? So the Aries knows how to attack. While the other... Okay, here we go. In a more spiritual way, I've got to learn to mark my place so I can save time a little bit. In a more spiritual way, through the houses of the Aries ascendant personality, if we go back 8 houses in an Aries chart, we come to a Virgo. What's Virgo? Virgo is the slave. Virgo is the servant. The last thing an Aries would want to be, because an Aries always likes to be a leader. He doesn't want to take orders from anybody. When he has to be a servant, he will feel bad. It is not his task in this world. His task is to lead, not to serve. So you should always look at the 6th and the 8th houses, the bad houses in the horoscope, and in the 6th and 8th houses from the ascendant, you see what the person doesn't like to be. Now, when he says death, he doesn't necessarily mean actual death, but he means death of the goals of the ascendant. These are signs of where the person is bothered and troubled and doesn't like to be. These are signs, I said that before, doesn't function well. So the Aries doesn't function well in Scorpio and Virgo. He hates taking orders or to be a servant. If you remember, Ariel Sharon, here's an idea, is an Aries rising type of person. He always got into trouble in the army because his superiors ordered him to do one thing and he would do another one. He would break his radio or turn it off so that he could not receive the orders and then go do whatever he wanted. He'd do what he wanted. That is the Aries personality. It doesn't like to take orders. It doesn't desire to do what he knows best, and he is going to go and do it. So the Aries dies in Scorpio, and he also dies in, he doesn't mean Libra, he means Virgo. Okay, so that's the shear here for today. This is Baruch Fleischman, the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. To me, this is very fascinating. Hope you enjoy.